My husband abruptly adopted a Burmese python, which caused me anxiety and fear. Years later, our marriage fell apart, leading to divorce. Original post, May 7, 2015. Maybe this would be more appropriate on snakes, but this problem is less about the python itself and more about my relationship with my husband. Personally, I don't think it's a good fit there. 6 months ago, our corn snake unexpectedly died. My husband and I were both very upset. He was a cute little guy and still very young. My husband has owned several small reptiles during his lifetime, and he told me he was thinking of trying a milk snake this time instead of a corn snake or a garter snake. However, 2 months after our corn died, he came home with a baby Burmese python. Apparently, it has always been his dream to own one. Not only am I upset that he got something like that without consulting me, but on the upside, where we live, they are legal. Still, I had several reservations that have only grown since we've owned it. I have generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and that snake triggers my anxiety like nothing else. When I was researching pythons, I kept reading stories about them killing pets' children, and even their owners. Now I'm freaked out and have barely slept for 4 months. This is made worse by the fact that my husband has no experience with large snakes. The larger the python grows, the more it shows, especially with us having a cat. The other snakes we've had, our corn snake and my husband's old garter snake, pose no threat. But now I constantly worry that the python is going to escape and eat her. I've taken to locking the cat in our bedroom at night, which interferes with our sleep since she mows and scratches at the door. I constantly worry about her when she's home alone. I'll reiterate, this thing is huge. He is already 6 feet long. I'm home more than my husband, so I have to feed it and change its substrate often. I hate doing both so much, especially now that he's graduated to eating rabbits and pigs. I honestly think that since my husband bought him without consulting me, caring for it should be his sole job. But I'm not going to let it go hungry or live in its own waste out of pride. I don't think we can give this snake the best quality of life, which I think is essential for all pets. He's getting too big for the tank he's in, which is his third since we've gotten him, and I don't think we have the room in our house for the enclosure my husband wants to build for him. His food is very expensive and eats into our savings, but it's what he needs, so we can't downgrade. The python does not deserve to live in a tiny space and eat inadequate food just because my husband wanted one as a kid. At the same time, it's quite possible it could eat us out of house and home. I don't want kids while we own a python, and these things can live up to 20 years. I don't want to ever have children, which I've dreamed of, because of a python. Because of all these reasons, but especially the ones about our cat and its quality of life, I've gently brought all of this up to my husband, how much mental anguish it causes me, how worried I am for our cat, and how the snake is unsustainable. All he's done is tell me to get over it, accuse me of not caring about his happiness, and say I'm being prejudiced against animals that aren't cute and cuddly. None of this is true, not even the last accusation. I liked his smaller snakes a lot. How can I communicate productively with my husband about this issue? He already loves this snake. Edit to clarify the title, my husband is male. Edit 2 for the snake enthusiasts. I acknowledge now that our husbandry is probably wrong, proving my point even more. Also, I have been informed that the snake probably wasn't a baby if it's at this size now, so take that into account. I am not the most knowledgeable about snakes. TL Drive, my husband adopted a Burmese python without consulting me for a variety of reasons, most of all, that I worry it could kill us and the cat, that we don't have enough experience with large reptiles, and that its care is too expensive. I think we should rehome it, but my husband thinks this means I hate snakes and is offended I want to rehome the python. I need advice on how to communicate with him in a way that will make him see my perspective. Relevant comments. OP on her husband's rebuttal to her arguments. He said that as far as worrying about the python getting out and killing the cat or future kids, I won't let it get out. He also suggested I need to go on new anxiety medication, never mind the fact that both the corn and the garter escaped from their tanks. He asked, "What are you going to do? Let it starve just because you don't like it? That's cruel." He says that we have room for the enclosure and that we'll find money to keep buying food. He thinks I'm ridiculous for not wanting babies while we have a python and says everything will be fine. I don't find any of his rebuttals particularly compelling because they simply dismiss my concerns without explaining why they won't happen. Update 1 May 14, 2015. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the outpouring of support, especially from the reptile enthusiasts who happen to be browsing this sub. You guys are awesome. Now, I just want to say what everyone wants to hear: the snake is gone, and my cat is all right. Here's how it happened. Thursday night, while I was replying to people, on my post several suggested talking to my husband's friend, who owns Burmese pythons and is an experienced reptile keeper. I was too blinded by the situation and my own anxiety to even think of that. I messaged him on Facebook Thursday night and told him the situation. He was shocked at just how bad things were, but apparently he tried to warn my husband that owning small snakes and then jumping to a Burmese is like thinking owning house cats makes you qualified to own a tiger. My husband didn't listen. He's been busy going to reptile shows and breeding venomous cobras. He's kind of a badasso. He only saw the snake in person once when we just got it. He was immediately disturbed when I told him about the overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handled alone. He told me he'd come over the next day, Friday, and give my husband a real talk, as well as do anything he could to help us rehome it. I decided I couldn't live another day in the house like that, and neither could my cat, so Friday morning I moved out to my mother's while my husband was at work. It was a bit sneaky, but I knew that if I tried to leave while he was home, he'd try to convince me to stay. I called him on his lunch break and told him I'd left until the snake was gone. He was very upset, but started accusing me of being petty, as if I were letting a snake wreck our marriage. I had nothing productive to say to that, so I told him I'd talk to him later. Well, my husband's friend was so angry at what he saw of the snake that when he got to the house when my husband was home from work, he told him in plain terms that now that he saw how woefully inadequate being yelled at really affected him. When my husband drove over to my mother's to talk to me, he looked like a kicked puppy. He broke down and told me that he loved me, that he was sorry for the hell he'd put me through, and that it had taken having reason yelled to him by an expert for him to really see what was going on. He understood now that the snake could no longer live with us. I know that at that point, the sorrow he felt was due to having his snake taken away, not from a real understanding, not yet. So don't worry, he's not completely off the hook. It was cathartic to hear, though. His friend contacted a herpetology society he works with regularly, and then a member of that society. There it will be fed the right food, go on a diet, and live in a space big enough for him. My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and he acknowledged that his fervent desire to fulfill his childhood dream made him careless and selfish. He wasn't trying to be malicious towards me. He just wanted the snake so badly that he'd do and say anything to keep it. It still seems like he hasn't fully learned from this experience, which I'm not expecting this early, but it is still a bit disappointing. He talked yesterday about getting a ball python, and I put my foot down. I don't think we should get another snake for a long time. On Sunday, I sat him down and asked him to tell me the truth about how he got the python, because walking into a pet shop for a milk snake and just finding a Burmese sounded more and more implausible the more I thought about it. He admitted that he arranged to get one with a breeder online while he was telling me he wanted a little snake, meaning he was actively lying to me. This breeder is also a state away, meaning my husband participated in something illegal when he met up with him to get it, since transporting Burmese pythons across state lines is against the Lacey Act. I'm very angry about this. I'm upset about his lies, and I'm upset that he blew me off for months. He admitted he lied just because he knew I'd say no, which shows such immaturity that almost disgusts me. I'm upset that he broke the law, and I'm upset that he only listened to what I told him when it came from someone else. Apparently, he's been having a quarter-life crisis that he didn't tell me about because he feels that he should have accomplished more with his life at 26. He never went to college. I feel sympathy for him, but that's no excuse to treat me badly. I moved back home with Kitty last night, but our marriage is in severe jeopardy right now due to the lying and the lack of respect my husband has shown me. But I made vows to stick with him, and I don't take those lightly. We are going to be getting counseling, which I hope will make him really see what was wrong with what he did, rather than just be a knee-jerk response to being in trouble, so to speak, and will strengthen us. If not, well, I'll have to consider my options. P.S. People were saying in the other post that we were actually feeding the snake guinea pigs, and that I was lying to make the snake look bad. Well, I was fudging the truth, but not in the way people thought. My husband's cousin owns a working ranch with several pigs, and my husband was buying them from him for a pretty penny. I didn't want to say it because I thought people would focus on the snake-eating baby animals and start calling for its blood instead of offering me advice. TL Drive, I went to my mother's with my cat, and my husband's reptile keeper friend caused him to see reason. The snake is gone, and I'm back with my very happy and healthy kitty. However, our marriage was severely hurt by this whole thing, and we are going to be getting counseling. Update to June 13, 2015. Hi, I'm back. The snake is still gone, but I guess I'm coming back out of desperation. People messaged me wanting to know how I was doing. On the surface, therapy has been going well. My husband has been doing everything right. He's been contrite, open-minded, and treats me like a princess at all times. I can tell at home that he's making a conscious effort to listen to my opinions and thoughts and incorporate our therapist's suggestions into our lives. I feel like the biggest coward saying this, but I don't think it's enough. Over these past weeks, I've had to come to terms with the fact that something about how I view my husband has fundamentally changed. Finally, after extensive soul-searching a few days ago, I realized what it was. I have no respect for his intelligence anymore. After all this, that is very, very important to me, and now it's just gone. I don't know how it can come back without him getting a personality overhaul. It has killed my physical attraction to him. I normally have a high libido, and prior to all this, we made love 4 to 5 times a week. Since all this went down, we've been intimate 3 times. To be fair, while the snake was here, we were down to 2 to 3 times a week, but it was still more frequent than this. Despite all the changes he's making, he's still himself. He's still his goofy, absent-minded self who needs me to balance the checkbook and pack his lunch. I can't respect that anymore. I don't want to be his mom or a naggy sitcom wife. I used to love doing these things for him throughout our relationship. I took care of him, patched him up, and helped him solve his problems. I always saw that as the ultimate expression of love, but now I'm just sick of it. He can tell something's still wrong. He's irritated about my lack of forgiveness and my lack of a sex drive lately, especially since he's objectively doing all the right things. But his lack of understanding toward my apprehension makes my feelings even more pronounced. I realized the other day that I love him dearly as a friend. I've known him since I was 9 years old. Update: after the snake was rehomed, the atmosphere in our house felt lighter, but the shadows of our recent turmoil lingered. My husband Jake and I tried to navigate this new chapter with cautious optimism. Therapy sessions became a staple of our routine, a structured space where we could unpack the complexities of our emotions and the state of our marriage. I thought that perhaps the removal of the python would alleviate some of the stress, but I soon realized that the underlying issues were far more intricate than the presence of a single reptile. The first few therapy sessions were challenging. We sat across from each other in the cozy, warmly lit office of our therapist, Sarah. She encouraged us to express our feelings openly. I often found myself speaking about the anxiety I had felt since the python arrived, the sleepless nights, the constant worry for our cat, and the feeling of being trapped in a situation I hadn't chosen. Jake listened, his brow furrowed, as if he was trying to understand the weight of my emotions. "Do you think I don't care?" he asked one day, his voice tinged with hurt. "I didn't realize how much this affected you. I thought we could handle it together." "I know you didn't intend to hurt me," I replied, my voice trembling. "But it's not just about the snake, it's about how you made decisions without me. It made me feel invisible." Sarah guided us through these conversations with a gentle but firm hand, reminding us that our feelings were valid. Over time, Jake started to show more awareness of how his actions impacted me. He shared his own struggles, revealing how the pressure to fulfill his childhood dreams of being a cool reptile owner had clouded his judgment. "I just wanted something exciting," he admitted, "but I didn't think about how it would affect you." As we continued therapy, I felt a shift in our dynamic. Jake was more open and vulnerable, which helped me begin to rebuild the respect I had lost. We started to communicate more effectively, slowly peeling back the layers of misunderstanding that had built up between us. Yet, despite these positive strides, an undercurrent of anxiety still simmered within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that our foundation was fragile. I often lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if we were truly moving forward or just putting a band-aid on deeper wounds. One evening, after a particularly intense session, we decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. The air was crisp, the kind that hinted at the approach of autumn. As we strolled hand in hand, I felt a mix of hope and trepidation. "How do you really feel about all this?" I asked, breaking the comfortable silence. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I feel like I've let you down. I thought I could manage everything, but I see now how naive that was. I want to be the partner you deserve, but I'm scared. What if I mess up again?" I paused, considering his words. "We are both learning, Jake. It's okay to be scared, but we have to be honest with each other, especially about our fears. I need to know you're with me in this." He nodded, a look of determination crossing his face. "I am. I promise I'll keep trying, but what about you? Can you forgive me?" The question hung in the air, heavy and poignant. I took a deep breath. "I think I can, but it's going to take time. I need to see that you're committed to making changes, not just saying the right things." Jake squeezed my hand, and we continued our walk in silence, both lost in thought. That night I realized that forgiveness isn't a switch you flip, it's a journey, one that requires patience and understanding from both sides. In the weeks that followed, we implemented small changes in our daily routine. We started cooking dinner together again, something we hadn't done in ages. The laughter that filled our kitchen felt like a balm for our strained relationship. We also made a point to have regular check-ins, where we could express our feelings and any worries without judgment. It was during one of these evenings, while chopping vegetables, that Jake surprised me. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone serious. "Maybe it's time for us to explore new hobbies together, something to bring us closer, you know." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What did you have in mind?" "Maybe we could take a class, pottery, painting, anything that gets us creating together," he suggested, a hopeful smile lighting up his face. I chuckled, picturing us covered in clay or paint, probably making a mess of everything. But the thought also thrilled me. "I love that idea, let's look into it." As we began to explore these new interests, I felt a renewed sense of partnership blossoming between us. We signed up for a pottery class, and I couldn't remember the last time I had felt so excited about spending time together. The first class was filled with laughter and shared mistakes, and for the first time in a long while I felt light. However, beneath this newfound joy, I still grappled with the remnants of my anxiety. The idea of having children remained a looming cloud over our heads. The thought of bringing a child into a household that once housed a large snake was unsettling. I struggled with whether I could ever fully embrace motherhood while holding on to those fears. One night, as we lay in bed, I decided to broach the topic. "Jake, do you still want kids?" He turned to me, his expression thoughtful. "Honestly, I do, but I want to make sure we are ready emotionally and financially. I know the last few months have been tough. I just don't know if I can do it," I admitted, my heart racing. "I worry that if we had kids, I'd always be anxious, worrying about their safety. I don't want to live in fear." Jake took a moment to respond, his voice gentle. "I understand that, but maybe we can focus on us first. Building a strong foundation together, we don't have to rush into anything." His words provided a sliver of relief, but the fear still echoed in my mind. I nodded, appreciating his understanding, but feeling the weight of uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, and as we continued our pottery classes, I noticed subtle shifts in our relationship. We communicated better, laughed more freely, and even began to envision a future without the python's shadow looming over us. We would often sit at the kitchen table after class, our hands stained with clay, discussing our dreams and fears over cups of tea. One night, while cleaning up after dinner, Jake surprised me again. "I've been thinking about adopting a pet," he said casually. My heart sank. What kind of pet? Maybe a dog. I know it's a big commitment, but I feel like it could really help us. A dog would bring joy and companionship. I paused, considering his suggestion. A dog felt like a leap, but perhaps it was the right move for us. "I like the idea, but we need to make sure we're ready. We've got to be sure we can provide a good home." Jake nodded, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Let's do some research. We can find a breed that fits our lifestyle." As we delved into the world of dog breeds, I felt a growing sense of hope. It felt like a step forward, a way to create a life filled with love and companionship rather than fear and anxiety. And so, as the autumn leaves began to fall and our pottery pieces slowly took shape, I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could build a future together, one where fear wouldn't dictate our choices and where love could flourish. Our journey was far from over, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. With each day, we were creating not just pottery, but a life filled with laughter, understanding, and most importantly, connection. As the holidays approached, I found myself feeling hopeful for the first time in a long while. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but with Jake by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next.